It's the B Plus Wrestling Podcast.
The Moose.
You might not be an A, but you are a B plus.
Check it out! Here we go! You wanna mess with us? 'Cause we're steady on the ground, steady on the ground. You wanna mess with us? 'Cause we're steady.
All right, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends, welcome to the B Plus Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Unchained. Today is Friday. You know what that means. It's everyone's favorite day here at the B Plus Podcast. It is Aussie Grapps Day, the day we like to sit down and take a look at everything happening in the world of Australian professional wrestling. We also like to sit down and speak to an Aussie Grappler or Grappler adjacent person. This week, I spoke to referee Nick. That's right, PWA's own Big Dick Nick, about the art of refereeing, about PWA, Wrestling Go, all that fun stuff. And so make sure you stick around for that. But first, let's get a look at what's happening this week in Aussie Grapps news. Kicking things off as we usually do with Aussies overseas, it's very hard not to lead with, of course, our boy Robbie Eagles over in New Japan Pro Wrestling right now, tearing things up as part of the Best of the Super Juniors tournament. He is currently, as of recording this late Thursday night, he is 2-0 in the actual tournament action. He is 4-0 on this tour. 4 nights, 4 wins. He's picked up the win every single time. It's amazing. He's doing a fantastic job, doing us really proud. He started off the tournament in action against Rocky Romero. Really, really good match with Rocky Romero, teaching Rocky Romero a lesson for disrespecting the Eagles name, for not knowing about the Eagles family, and Robbie got the win there and taught him a lesson, and it's safe to say Rocky Romero will not forget the Eagles name again. And then he had a relatively easy win against Ren Narita. The match was still a great match, but of course, you know, the young lions over there, they tend to be there to take the pinfalls. They tend to be there to be the, you know, the point sinks. So, you know, Ren Narita's gonna be at the bottom of the table anyway. That as soon as Ren Narita was put into the tournament as a replacement, it was pretty clear. Okay, Robbie's gonna get a win over Ren Narita. Dauki. He's a whole other story. He may get a win over Robbie Eagles, but I'm thinking Robbie will get a win over him anyway. New Japan are very high on Robbie Eagles. As if you listen to any of the Michael Craven interviews that came out this week, you will know that they're very high on Robbie Eagles. Robbie Eagles is integral to their plans to expand into Australia. So, you know, expecting big things for Robbie Eagles moving forward in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Speaking of New Japan Pro Wrestling, speaking of Michael Craven, a man who appeared on a few podcasts with him this week, Gino Gambino. He's been announced he's returning to commentary for New Japan Pro Wrestling. He already did. He was there for the most recent tour, the Dontaku, Road to Dontaku. I forget the exact name of it. I don't have it in my notes for some reason, but he's returning, and he will be calling the Best of the Super Junior finals alongside Kevin Kelly. So that's amazing. Congratulations, Gino Gambino. You're doing a really, really good job on commentary with New Japan, and very excited to have an Australian voice, the first ever Australian voice to call action for a major promotion. Sticking with Aussies overseas for a second, it has been announced this week that Adam Brooks is debuting for Major League Wrestling on July the 1st. So he's been over there in the United States for a while now, tearing things up. He's been over there since WrestleMania weekend. And yeah, he's getting a debut match with Major League Wrestling, MLW. You know, it airs on YouTube over here. It's on beIN Sports. It's a major TV product out of California over there. I think they travel all around the place though, but I believe they're based in California. Either way, MLW brings some of the best talent in the world. They've got lots of lucha guys there. You know, Low Key is a big feature there. Filthy Tom Lawler, the champion at the moment. And it's really, really good to see Adam Brooks showing up on wrestling TV and showing up in MLW. Of course, he's been impressing with his work in CMLL and The Crash at the moment, and so it's really cool to see him get the nod and come into MLW. Hopefully this becomes somewhat of a permanent move for him. Meanwhile, here in Australia, Oz Comic Con, taking place in Melbourne, have announced that Dolph Ziggler is coming down to participate in Comic Con in Melbourne on the 8th and 9th of June. So you can book your tickets online for Oz Comic Con now. Dolph Ziggler, you know, billed as a wrestler and a stand-up comedian. Of course, his ever so important stand-up comedy work. He's coming down, and he will be performing something or being there to sign stuff. I don't know, it's not exactly clear. Comic-Con's Comic-Con, you know, they do what they do at Comic-Con. And also in WWE news for Australia, we're getting a live tour in October. They're actually going to be in Sydney on the 21st. I'm still in Sydney on the 21st, so, you know, who knows? I might end up going to a WWE show right after the Coliseum shows. It's a pretty good trip for anyone who's coming up for Coliseum. You know, if you're coming from Adelaide, for example, because they're not doing a show in Adelaide, they are doing Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. So if you're coming over from Perth or if you're coming over from Adelaide for the Coliseum tournament, you know, if you're a WWE fan, book a couple of extra days on the end of your trip there, and they will be in Sydney on the Monday night, the 21st. So very cool stuff there. It's awesome that it sort of lines up with the PWA. It's a massive weekend of wrestling for PWA fans. And this last weekend was a massive weekend for PWA fans. They had their first ever live stream on OvoPlay. It went very well. And in the afterglow of the event, see what I did there? See, in the afterglow, PWA Green Label has been announced. What is Green Label? Thank you for asking. It is a new brand within PWA, specifically focusing on, they're calling them their young lions, their up-and-comers, the younger talent, although Jack Bonza's on the poster, so don't know if you can really call him a young lion or an up-and-coming talent. He's kind of one of the top guys in the country, but it's for those that are training at the academy and aren't making it onto shows every single show. You know, guys like your Kai Drakes, your Headhunter Riggs, these sorts of guys, Tree Hugger Lucci, to get more ring time and develop their characters more and work in front of a crowd. And the awesome thing is, like, a lot of companies will put on these sort of student showcase shows or sort of undercard showcase shows, and they will take place at the academy themselves. This actually has a venue behind it. So the first show is announced for June 9th, PWA Green Label at the Crowbar in Sydney. So there's an actual venue, another 18 plus venue that they're working for these Green Label shows, which is fantastic. And coming off the back of their first ever live stream on OvoPlay, the big question on everyone's lips was, will these shows be filmed for OvoPlay? And the response came from the PWA Twitter account that yes, they will be. No word on whether they will be live streamed on OvoPlay, but the shows will find their way onto OvoPlay, so we will get to see, those of us interstate, we'll get to see the developments from these shows. Now, the first ever PWA live stream wasn't the only thing that happened last week. MCW had a huge weekend last weekend with their Brewery Brawl and Girl 4 shows. Of course, they've had a crazy month of May, because May 4th, of course, was the Wrestle Rock May the 4th show. Then last weekend with Brewery Brawl and Girl. Then this weekend they have the War to Settle the Score. Just a crazy Mikey J there in Melbourne City Wrestling. He bit off way more than anyone can chew, to be honest with you, for this month. And he probably has not slept a wink, and I feel bad for the guy. You know, these shows have to come up on Vimeo and he has to edit them all together, so it's pretty crazy. But thank you, Mikey J. Thank you, Melbourne City Wrestling team, for doing what you do to bring amazing wrestling to Australia. Of course, Session Moth Martina and Millie McKenzie, both taking place in this last weekend of wrestling for Melbourne City Wrestling and for PWA on that live stream. And then this weekend coming, of course, we have the War to Settle the Score. So it's crazy big month for MCW. The biggest news, though, coming out of last weekend, the biggest news for me was the Pariah have been announced to come over to Melbourne City Wrestling to challenge the Brat Pack for the tag team titles. That is huge. The Pariah are one of the best tag teams in Australia. I did an interview with them quite recently. You can go back, it's just a few weeks ago in the archives there. You can see I did an interview with the Pariah. Amazing interview. They talked about being the best tag team in Australia, because I mentioned that people call them an up-and-coming tag team, and Eli Theseus was very strong with his words. Fuck that, he said. They're one of the best tag teams in Australia, and I completely agree with him, and to see them taking on the Brat Pack in Melbourne is fantastic. Very happy for those guys. Looking forward to seeing that match. But the biggest news realistically coming out of last weekend is Slex has vacated the Intercommonwealth Championship. Slexy 2 belts is no more. He's back to just being Slexy World Champion. And the Intercommonwealth Championship is now going to be decided. He said that he wanted to create more opportunity for younger guys in the company to have their shot, which is a remarkable thing. He said all this after defeating Lockie Hendricks for both titles. And so we're getting a tournament now for the Intercommonwealth Championship. The matches have been announced. The first match announced was an interesting one. DCT is going to take on the first ever MCW heavyweight champion, Danny Psycho, returning after more than 6 years out of Melbourne City Wrestling. I think the last time he had a match in Melbourne City Wrestling was 2012. So 7 years. That is crazy long time to be away from a company. And he's coming back, and he's in this Intercommonwealth Championship tournament. And I could see him going all the way, to be honest with you. First round, he has DCT, though, which is no small task. We have Funtime Phil and Loverboy Lockie Hendricks in a rematch for the match not long ago that resulted in some ass kissing. We also have TD taking on Jet, and Richie Taylor taking on the debuting Kane Khan, of course, a former SPW champion over there in New Zealand. Kane Khan is one to watch. It's been really interesting seeing the SPW guys come over for Melbourne City Wrestling in advance of the the Great Southern Rumble that is going to take place, that is co-promoted by MCW and SPW over there on the South Island in New Zealand and Invercargill, where we're getting plenty of New Zealand guys coming over to Australia. Marcus Cool, of course, has come over. JK Moody has been over a few times. T-Rex was at the last show, and now we get Kane Khan taking on Richie Taylor. Really exciting stuff. But that's all we have in terms of news for the week. Let's cut across to my interview with Big Dick Referee Nick. I always feel a little bit dirty saying that. And then after the interview, I'll let you know what's happening this weekend near you.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey guys, just a reminder, if you want to hear all of these wonderful B Plus podcast episodes completely ad-free, make sure you head over to Patreon or Podbean, where we are the featured podcast this week. You can subscribe for as little as $1 a month up to $10 a month, where anything you want to help us with, it really helps out. It's going to help us grow the site. It's going to help us redesign some things, and everything that we get through this and through the advertising as well is all going straight back into the podcast so that we can get Aussie Grapps out there for the rest of the world to hear about, for the rest of the world to see, so we can grow this mission of watch global, support local, and build indie wrestling. So if you want to be a part of that and get some really cool rewards like call-in shows, bonus episodes, ad-free like I mentioned, then head over to patreon.com/theb+ and subscribe today. Hey everyone, just want to take a second to tell you about one of our new sponsors, OUTBREAK NUTRITION. OUTBREAK NUTRITION are creating supplements for survival, sharper minds, quicker reflexes, all the energy you need to take your performance to the next level, whether that be on the field, in the gym, on the gaming field. That's right, they have specifically designed gaming supplements as well to help you focus on those late night sessions. They even sell coffee, you guys, at OUTBREAK NUTRITION. You can get coffee pods, you can get coffee beans, you can get supplements for the bedroom as well if you want to enhance your performance there. These are performance enhancing supplements for every aspect of your life, specifically designed by gamers, for gamers, to stay fit and healthy in the gym, to stay sharp and focused on the game, and to dominate in all areas of life. So check out OutbreakNutrition.com, and for being a listener of our podcast, they will give you 10% off your order when you enter the code B+. That is BPLUS at checkout. So make sure, if you want to stay on top of your game, if you want to take your performance to the next level, OutbreakNutrition.com, enter the code B+ at checkout. All right, joining me at this time, by the magic of the internet, referee Big Dick Nick. I think I did that right. I don't know. You've got a few names, but referee Nick, how are you, man?
I'm good. How about you, man?
Yeah, man, I'm well. So, wanted to talk to you about, you're the first referee that I've ever had on the B+ podcast.
Okay, yeah.
So thank you for coming on the show. I want to talk a bit about, refereeing and how it differs and stuff, but we'll start at the beginning, right? How did you get into wrestling?
So if we're talking about way, way, way back when I was a kid, as everyone does, I was just flicking through the channels and whatnot, and I randomly stumbled upon WWE SmackDown on Fox 8, and everyone always has the same thing. It's Stone Cold giving the stunner to Mr. McMahon, or I saw Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels hour-long Iron Man match. The first memory I have of wrestling is Josh Matthews versus JBL from November 2004.
Wow.
And the reason I loved it so much is because just this wimpy little Josh Matthews, because I was a very small kid when I was younger. So this wimpy kid was just getting the shit knocked out of him. And then Booker T, because they were having the rivalry at the time, Booker T comes in, beats up JBL, and Josh Matthews gets the win. And I was like, if this small guy can do that, maybe I can do something like that as well. And from there, I was just hooked.
Right. Amazing. So then when you eventually came around to training and stuff,
yeah,
did you look at it, were you to be a wrestler? Were you always sort of looking to be a ref?
So initially, I was kind of looking at being a wrestler, and I saw that the promotion that I was going to train at, their referee just retired. So I thought, oh, this is perfect. I'll start being a referee. I will, go to different promotions, referee for them. And once I'm trained up and good enough to start becoming a wrestler, everyone already knows me. I don't have to kind of like weasel my way in because I've already had to do that as a referee.
Right, and because everyone's going to need refs on their shows, right?
Yeah.
So it's a pretty solid plan. Yeah, pretty solid plan. Well, how long ago did you start actually training then? So, and where was that? Where did you start?
So I started back in 2016 at the AWS school, like everyone does in New South Wales. So yeah, I started there. I started training in about July of 2016. Then I did a bit more training in August, and then September, I think it was 3rd, was my first show that I ever did. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So in terms of training to be a referee, training to be a wrestler, I mean, how does it differ? Right? Because I've talked to a lot of people about training as a wrestler and how intense it can be and all that sort of stuff. How does it differ when you're focusing more on, you know, the other side of being in the ring?
So when I started, essentially what TNT told me was I've just got to learn kind of the basics about how to be a wrestler. So I did the first course that he does. So I just needed to learn how to bump, how to do like basic moves and whatnot, and just how to learn how to do some of that stuff. He also let me into the advanced class who did started to do matches, just so I can get a hand in refereeing before I started doing them on the events that he had.
And so you would be in the beginners class learning how to take bumps and stuff for when, you know, which will come in handy later.
Yeah.
And then you were kind of in the advanced class, sort of learning the positioning and where to be to get out of the way, and sort of, because I feel like that's half the job of the referee, is being there but not being noticed.
Yeah, like
until you need to be.
Like that's absolutely, like, it's one of the things that I kind of had to learn as I went, because there's only so much you can learn when you start training before you actually start doing them. Like when you get in the ring and you start refereeing, you kind of have to learn after a while about how to both be there in the ring while also having people not look at you and having the action tell the story.
Yeah. See, because I look at it, because I've done some basic training myself, and I've considered like, oh, maybe I could be a referee or a manager or something to get into the business, and I decided to be a podcaster instead. But hey, I look at it and I feel like the referee job would be the hardest job, because I'm like, what would I even do with my body? Like, to not draw attention, like, it feels so confusing to me. Like, how do you learn to exist without drawing attention? I don't even know.
I couldn't tell you, like, to be completely honest. It's just after a while, I've just kind of learned, like, all right, I should be here when this is happening. When this is happening, I need to get in the way. This is when I need to be seen, and this is when I need to be taking a step back. I know where my positions are, so I know, like, for instance, with World Series Wrestling at Penrith Panthers, the main stage where the entrance is, the opposite side, that's where 95% of the crowd is going to be. So I know that I shouldn't be in those front two corners, because I don't want to be blocking any of the crowd. Because if I start doing that, they start noticing me, and that's the exact opposite of what I want to do. So I stay towards the back. I'm only seen when I need to be seen. And at the times that I am in those front two corners, I do everything in my power to move back as quickly as I can.
Right. So it becomes like an intuition thing, a feeling thing based on, and you got to get to know the venues intimately as well.
Yeah. Like that's one of the biggest things, especially now with PWA streaming on OVO. We don't want to get in the way of the hard cam. So I just have to learn as much as I can, stay to the back as much as possible, which I feel like I do as best as I can.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, so I've got two referees that I really, really enjoy watching in New South Wales wrestling, and it's yourself and referee John Anderson.
Yeah,
yeah, and I enjoy watching you guys because you're there when I need you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I never feel like I'm yelling at the TV like, hey, you should be involved here. Where's the ref? What's going on? Like I feel like you guys are on top of it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, like honestly, like one of the guys I look up to in New South Wales, like refereeing, would be John Anderson, because I think he's going on about 5 years now. So he's had that like experience of it, and he especially started at the Australian Pro Wrestling Gym with J-Law and Diego, and that ring is very small. So he learned how to be like not be in the way. So when he starts doing like events on bigger rings, like the Newcastle Pro Wrestling ring, which is much bigger than the APWG one, he already understands how to get himself out of the way, how to be in position for that. And watching him do that stuff has made me a better referee.
Yeah. So now when you watch wrestling, now that you are, you know, referee Nick, when you watch wrestling, are you watching the refs? Because that's not something I would even think to do. But after doing some basic training, I started watching wrestlers' feet, right? So do you watch the refs and intimately get to see like what they're doing? Break it down?
100%, yeah. Like that's one of the biggest things that I think training and being a referee has made me do, which is look at not just the wrestlers, but the referees as well. Like look at what they're doing, understand why they're doing it, how they're doing it, what are they doing different to me, how can I make myself better. And then also when I'm watching with friends, I completely call out referees at the time because I'm that kind of person when I'm watching wrestling.
It's a different way to watch wrestling. Who's your favorite referee, would you say?
I've got three. So, like, the two in the WWE are Mike Chioda and Charles Robinson. They are, like, two of the best referees, I think, ever. I know a lot of people who've watched, like, way back in the day in, like, the 90s and the 80s and even the 70s might say something different. But as a 21-year-old, Chioda and Robinson are, like, one of the best. But if you look at the independents, my number one favorite referee is Bryce Remsburg. His stuff from like Chikara and all the independents he's done, and even if you look at Spring Break this year, him refereeing the Invisible Man versus Invisible Stan, no one else could have done that. Like that is just a Bryce Remsburg thing.
When that match got announced, I was like, it better be Bryce Remsburg. Like, no one else can do this. It has to be Bryce.
Yeah.
And it was, and I was very happy.
Yeah, like, just seeing stuff like that, it makes me appreciate him more, especially because he's kind of become his own character while still being a referee. So people notice when he's there, but he's very good at taking a step back and letting the action tell the story and only coming into it when he's needed instead of just because he wants to.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, is the reactions, right? Like, because as a referee, you have to sell the action as well. And Bryce Rams, his facial expressions and things when people are doing wacky stuff, it's like, it actually adds to the show. It doesn't, like, if you look at him, it's going to add to the like the enjoyment of the match as opposed to take away.
Yeah, like he is one of the guys that I kind of base a lot of my facial expressions on, because I know when something big happens, he has that big reaction to it. When, you know, there's this emotional moment, he's there with them. He is the crowd inside the ring. And I feel like that's what I need to do as well, and that's what I've been trying to do as well. And I know that I'm only like 2.5 years into my career. I'm at a level, but I know that there's so much more I can do. And it's just going to take some time to get to the level of Bryce Remsburg, who's been doing this for years and years now.
Yeah.
But I feel like just watching him gets me to do better.
Yeah, I can see the influence, to be honest, and it makes me very happy that you say that he's your favorite outside WWE, because I'm a big Chikara guy, and of course that will in turn make me a big PWA guy, right? Because a lot of PWA people are big fans of Chikara, and I think it really shows in the product. Like you talked about being the fan in the ring as the referee, and you know, Diego exemplified being the fan on the outside of the ring as part of the show as well.
Yeah,
and it's something that PWA do really well. When did you move to PWA and how did that all come about?
So I am good friends with Jax Jordan, and around about the time that I started refereeing in 2016, he just started training at the Pro Wrestling Academy. So I started asking him about that, and he said, well, they've got an open day in January. Why don't you come down to that? So I did that, and again, my whole plan was to just do the training, still be a referee, and then eventually I'll become a wrestler. So that was just my whole plan with PWA. So I did the tryout in January. I got in, and then I started doing their course and whatnot. And then I think around about towards the end of 2017, I've already refereed on a lot of their shows. I started doing Newcastle Pro Wrestling as well. And by that point, I was like, okay, maybe let's take a hold on being a wrestler for now. Let's just focus on the refereeing. And then once I feel ready, I'll step back into training and being a wrestler. And honestly, that never really came back. Like, I've always loved being a referee ever since I started it. And it's just so different to being a wrestler from everyone I've talked to about it that it's just so much fun for me. Like, that's the biggest thing. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you can have, I feel like you can have a much longer career because, we talk about the bump card,
Yeah.
right? And and everyone's bump card is what it is. And, wrestlers are taking far more bumps than refs.
Yeah.
So, but you did make your wrestling debut recently at Wrestling Go. You had the whole SMS angle with On Social Jordan and what have you. How was that?
It was very different. It's something that I didn't think I would ever get to experience. But when I did, I did feel a sense of accomplishment for me because that was something as a kid I always wanted to do. And I finally got to do that. And I feel kind of content with that being my one match. And if that's the only one I ever actually have, I am totally fine with that because just everything about it was so great. I got to team with a guy who, when I just started at PWA, he took me under his wing in Big Fudge. I got to wrestle against Tyler Payne and Unsocial Jordan, who, in my opinion, are two of the most underrated guys in Australian wrestling. And just everything around it as well was just amazing. Coming out, having everyone chant my name, which is something that's still weird to me as a referee coming out, but as a wrestler was so weird. I got to pin Unsocial Jordan, which was just so weird. He picked me up for his finish and I rolled the back. I got that schoolboy 1, 2, 3, and just hearing everyone just lose it because I actually beat this accomplished wrestler, not just at Wrestling Go, being a former doubles and silvers medalist, but also being a former PWA tag team champion. Like, having all of this happen was completely insane to me. And I think for me, it was finally knowing that everything I was doing mattered. And
right, and so getting that instant feedback from the crowd. Yeah. So you've become sort of a character unto yourself with these shows, and so the crowd's reacting to you. Is it still kind of weird, or are you getting used to it?
I'd say both. Like, initially, it was really weird because I just knew myself as the referee. I was the unnamed third party in the ring. I just looked a little bit different than the two wrestlers. I'm wearing a black and white striped shirt. I look like I just came from my job at Foot Locker. And from there, I had... So a few fans started, chanting my name. And I'm just like, oh, that's cute. That's funny. And then it just became bigger and bigger and bigger. And then Diego took it to a whole new level. And now it's just exploded. Yeah.
See, I miss the days when, the referee name was announced at the beginning of the matches and you knew these people as part of the show.
Yeah.
Right? So it's awesome to me when referees do become characters unto themselves, like a Bryce Remsburg or like a Big Dick Nick, we could say. How did Big Dick Nick come about?
So it started in January. So it was actually Diego's last show. The night before, he was at Newcastle, and someone made a joke about calling me Big Dick Nick. And they go to Diego, and it's like, you have to call him Big Dick Nick tomorrow. And Diego's like, done, easy, no worries. And I'm like, guys, please no. Please don't do this. Don't do this to me. So we get to the show the next day. Nothing's been brought up. Nothing's been said. So I start walking out to the ring. And I just hear Diego go, and your referee, Big Nick, and everyone loses it. And I'm in the, you can see my reaction in the ring. I've just got my head in my hands. My face goes bright red. And I'm like, this is going to stick with me for life. This is who I am now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, commentary jumped on it,
Yeah.
and it's all we hear now. It's sort of it's just a bit of a rib that stuck.
Yes. I know Rose of the commentary team came up to me and he's like, look, if you don't want it said anymore, by all means, tell me and I can put the ixnay on it. And I'm like, you're not going to stop it. I know you guys. You guys are a bunch of footy fans. You're never going to stop it. So even if I tell you to, you're just going to keep going.
And now that it's out there too, like it's something like that can't be stopped.
No.
It's going to take on a life of its own.
It really has at this point.
And so how does it feel like? So, I mean, look, between Go and PWA, they're very different audiences, right?
Yeah.
What's like working the edgier 18 plus crowd compared to working in front of families? Is it different for you?
Not really, to be honest. I'm pretty much the same kind of person, like as a referee in both. It's just kind of what's happening in front of me is very different. So, like, for instance, I had the opportunity to referee Will Ospreay versus Robbie Eagles from last year at Cold Arms, which was genuinely, I think, one of my favorite matches I've ever had the privilege of refereeing. They went 27 minutes of just pure, just wrestling of the highest caliber. It's honestly one of my favorite matches, like, ever that I've seen.
Yeah,
but,
it's a world-class match. Yeah.
But then in January, I got to referee Big Fudge versus Maddie Wahlberg when they had their body swap.
When they switched bodies, yes.
And to me, that's almost at the same level as Ospreay and Eagles, but for completely different reasons. And just having to figure out the differences between that and how to properly referee both those matches are some of my favorite things to do. It's so much fun, like, understanding, all right, this is going to be a 10-minute slugfest between two big hosses, and the next match you're going to do is a comedy match between two guys who you can assure right now are not going to be doing a single move in the match.
Right.
And just having to understand what the difference for them and for me is when refereeing that.
Right, and so when it comes to like putting together matches and stuff, like peel the curtain back a little. When it comes to putting together matches and stuff, how involved does the referee become in that process?
It depends on
because you're going to be involved in multiple matches in a night.
Yeah, I kind of let them do whatever. I'm not the person who, gives ideas. I'm not the person who asks them questions and whatnot. I really just need to know what's happening towards the end and anything that's directly involving me.
Right.
Beyond that, I let everything else happen on its own. So every time something goes on, 95% of the time, I don't know it's happening.
Right, so you get that organic reaction to be that fan in the ring with us. Yeah.
Because one of the biggest things is I love being a fan. That's one of my favorite things. I love reacting to the stuff that's happening in the ring. It just so happens that I'm also in the ring. So for me, I still want to be that fan. I know that I have to be that impartial judge inside the ring, but there's always some stuff that you can have fun with when you're in there as well. And that's what I love more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like you're being a fan and not being afraid to embrace that role as the fan in the ring has helped you build the connection that you have with because the PWA is really becoming sort of a community.
Yeah.
Right. It feels that way as a fan. It feels like there's a real community around PWA, and a big place you can see that is on the Discord and with the Twitch that you guys have launched. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So we had the idea to start up some streaming and whatnot. We were initially starting with Super Smash Brothers and whatnot. We were eventually going to go into other games and whatnot, either on the Nintendo Switch or the PS4. I know a couple people have kind of had some stuff come up on Sunday, so we haven't been able to do it recently. but it was always just to do something fun over the Sundays where we didn't have any like wrestling events at all.
Yeah.
The Discord actually started up because no one knew where to like talk and whatnot. No one knew where to do everything. And no one really wanted to use Skype because we kind of knew that that was a real iffy, and someone brought up Discord. So we started a private chat to like talk on that. And then eventually we realized, oh, there's a couple of other wrestling companies, more so in the US, that have their own Discord. Why don't we start one up? We'll advertise it on the stream. We'll put it out on Twitter. People can join. They can talk about, you know, PWA, but also we have an MCW sub-Discord. We have an Australian wrestling one, an international wrestling one, a New Japan, Ring of Honor one. And it's where all these fans can talk about wrestling within this one place of people who are all fans of PWA. And you have some people drop in here and there from PWA, and we always have our overlord Caveman Ugg watching with an intent eye.
Yes. The most technologically apt caveman that we've ever seen.
I swear it's his handler, if anyone. But it's honestly like so much fun to just talk with all the guys that are on there, just talk about wrestling. And when we're talking about like the international wrestling, for instance, like the events that happened over WrestleMania weekend, talking about that, watching all of the PWA wrestlers wrestle on that, seeing that as a fan and talking with other fans is so much fun to do. But then also when they start talking about like PWA and having to kind of take a step back and talk to them not as a fan, but more as a part of the company itself. And just seeing all the things that they want to talk about, the ideas that they have. And I like to pass that on as well to PWA management, because a lot of their ideas I know are quite intricate and quite, like, it's something that I would like to see on the PWA events as well.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun to see all these guys have these one place to just talk about it with other wrestling fans from not just in New South Wales, but all around the country.
Yeah, well, not just the country either. Like Jordan Ozres Gifts is in there, and he's over in Newcastle upon Tyne. So, yeah, and I'm sure there's some other people from overseas in there as well. But yeah, but like I said, PWA just becoming kind of like a big community, and yeah, PWA feels like a company that really listens. And something that came out yesterday, a lot of people say, you know, PWA shows, why are they so far apart? You know, 6 weeks for another PWA show. That's ridiculous. Give us more PWA. And we're getting it. PWA Green Label.
Yes.
What can you tell us about Green Label? Can you tell, as a representative somewhat of the company, can you tell us what you know, what you're allowed to? Is there anything that we can know about Green Label?
So Green Label has been kind of in the rumblings for a few months now, because as a lot of people can see, there are some wrestlers that haven't been on a couple of the events recently. Like, I know Kai Drake just popped up at the most recent one, but it was about 2 or 3 events back when the last time you saw him. And that's not because he dropped off a little bit. That's complete opposite. He's been working so hard. It just so happens that everyone at the academy has been working their ass off so much that there's only so many spaces on like the events now on the card to put people, because no one wants to see a 16 match card go out with 9 people in them. It's just too much for, you know, one event. So having these Green Label shows, it's not only for the people that might miss out on maybe 1 or 2 events, but still give them the opportunity to wrestle for PWA. But this is also a place for a lot of the guys coming up from the academy as well to start wrestling as a representative of PWA, where they can show what they can do. And it's just going to become something that I think a lot of fans are going to want to see, because this is not only some of the veterans that you might see with Jack Bonza or Robbie Eagles popping up. This is where a lot of the next generation of talent is going to come out of.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, I mean, the PWA Academy produces some of the best talent in, I would say, the world.
I would 100%
personally.
agree with that.
So it's good that there's going to be a place for them to hone their craft in front of a live crowd. And the thing I really like is it's at Crowbar, right? So it's at an actual venue.
Yes.
This isn't taking place in the academy, which a lot of places, and I'm not poo-pooing that at all. Like, a lot of places do the academy shows, and I think it's smart. I think it's a good idea. And sometimes they can even look really good. The academy, like when you do it up and put the lighting in there, it can look really good. But I think it's really awesome that this, it's kind of like the student showcase sort of thing that, EPW do or SPW do with their fight nights, but it's at a venue, which I think is super cool.
Like, I see it as something that Progress did as well, because they have their electric ballroom, but they also do the Live at the Dome shows. Well, they used to do the Live at the Dome shows, where a lot of the younger talent as well would start wrestling on that, and that's where a lot of the guys from the Projos started. That's still a music venue, but it's a smaller venue. It's for different kinds of wrestlers. It's not necessarily for your Progress World Champions, your Tag Team Champions. It's for the younger guys to start out and get to a point where they can start appearing on those big chapter shows. And I feel like that's what's going to happen with these Green Label shows. This is where you can get your name out and be a PWA regular just by putting out some of the best wrestling that they can and putting it into Black Label maybe down the track.
Yeah, definitely. Sticking with the Progress, then, can we expect an Australian version of Freedom's Road soon from some students? Let's get that going. I love that series. I love drama in my wrestling.
Honestly, the stuff that's coming out of PWA from the videographers are completely insane. Seeing the documentary series from Maddie Wahlberg was honestly some of the best stuff I've seen come out of Australian wrestling. And
I love the way they treated it like a fight camp sort of thing. It was amazing.
And seeing something like that with more of a scripted way, having it more, directed towards kind of a TV show vibe, I would love to see something like that, because I know everyone at the Academy is talented in so many different ways. We have some actors, we have some editors, we have some cinematographers, some directors. We have guys who are in so many different talents that we can't not use it.
Yeah. Awesome. So big things to come and big things to show up on OvoPlay.
Yeah.
I think the PWA Twitter said that the Green Label shows will go up on OvoPlay, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
So OvoPlay is the new service that you guys are using. PWA Play no more. OvoPlay, we're going live. Does that change things for you? Going live to the world?
In certain ways, it does. In other ways, it doesn't. In the ways that it does, it puts so much more pressure on us to put out such a quality event for us, to show not just the 300 plus that are in max slots, but now we have thousands upon thousands of potential viewers who are going to be watching us on OvoPlay. But the things that stay the same is it's the same wrestlers, it's the same venue, it's the same stuff that we've always been doing. So it's a lot of the same, it's a lot of different things. And I think after this past Friday with Once Upon a Time in Max Watts, I think that was us realizing, okay, might be bigger than what we think it's going to be. And this is going to be us taking it into the next level, not just from a wrestling standpoint, but I think overall as well.
Yeah, definitely. And on that first show, you had a big moment.
Yeah.
You got knocked the fuck out by Mikey Broderick, and you sold it like you were dead.
I have no idea what you mean. I don't remember a whole lot. All I remember is I see Mick Moretti fly through the sky, land on, I think it was Damian Slater. My head's a bit woozy still. Lands on Damian Slater, 1, 2, and then I completely black out. And the next thing I remember is just laying down next to Christine Eagles, Robbie's lovely wife, and just seeing all these people surrounding me, just like, what's going on? And I look down, and I'm still in my referee shirt, so I'm like, okay, I'm not drunk. Something happened. And I crawl myself to the back, and then I sit down, and we have, 1 or 2 of the medical team come up to me, and they go, "Are you all right? You got knocked out there." And I went, "No, I'm good. I'm good." And I threw up a little, and then I blacked out again. And the next thing I remember, I woke up in hospital, and them telling me that I had a minor concussion. So, wow. Yeah, I don't really want to deal with Mikey Broderick again. That guy hits hard.
So Mikey hits hard.
For a guy with one hand, that guy hits so hard. It's from that time in Japan, I guess it was.
Yeah, that'll do it. He does extra workouts for his fist. We're gonna get that over now. He's got an iron fist. No, I think that's someone else has that gimmick. Anyway, Big Boy Mikey had a question that he wanted me to ask you, and I don't understand this. It's like entirely Greek to me, so I'm just going to read it word for word as he sent it to me. Is your anxiety for Champions League final at an all-time high?
Okay, so let me explain what's going on here. I am a gigantic Liverpool supporter. In the UEFA Champions League semi-final, Liverpool were 3-0 down after the first leg to Barcelona, who are a very tough team. Somehow, in this miracle, Liverpool came back to win 4-3 in this insane match. Honestly, it's been regarded as one of the best Champions League matches of all time. Just the fact that Liverpool was so defeated, and every single one of the players, and even Jurgen Klopp, the coach, said, "We still have a game to play. We have an opportunity to win." And they went out and they won in 90 minutes, which is completely insane. At the same time, Tottenham, who played in the other semi-final, had the exact same thing happen to them. They went 3-0 down to the Dutch Ajax, and Tottenham came back to win the semi-final and have an all-English final in the UEFA Champions League, which is the biggest tournament in Europe for football. The last time Liverpool were in the final, which was last year, our goalkeeper got a concussion and we lost 3-1. The time before that, we lost 2-0 to a team we beat 2 years prior. The short of it is, yes, my anxiety is through the fucking roof. Because Liverpool was so close to winning the English Premier League just this past weekend. They were a Manchester City loss away from winning it. And Manchester City came through with a 4-1 victory over Brighton. And it does hurt to get so close, having the most amount of points in English Premier League history, and still losing.
Right.
I
can see that.
I just want to see Liverpool hold a major trophy, and them having to be in the UEFA Champions League final, them being there, and especially against a team like Tottenham, who personally I don't rate, but have done some incredible things this season. I feel like Liverpool are going to do what they always do and bottle it completely, but they could also do the shocking thing and actually win the thing.
Right. Okay. So you're sort of like you're backing the team that always loses in the big moment. So I can understand why approaching the big moment he would be asking about your anxiety. It's very nice of him to check on you. Thanks, big boy. So I guess that's all I've really got for you. I do want to ask something else though. That's just completely off script. I'm just gonna go for it. It's my show. I can do what I want. Your accent, man, I can't fucking place it.
So I was born in the United States. So I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. At about 5 months old, my dad moved over to Adelaide for work. We were only supposed to be here for 2 years. I'm 21 years old now, so I haven't left.
Right.
Eventually,
So you've been here since you were that young, but you still have the accent, though.
yeah, I like to say that it was television that brought me up.
Okay, yeah, fair call. Because that's the thing is, like, I heard the American accent, and I'm like, it's got to be, it's mostly American, but then you do say some things really Australian too. And then I'm like, I'm listening to you, and you're talking about, well, you were flicking through channels as a kid, and you found Fox 8, and I'm like, okay, so he's in Australia as a kid. What is going on with his accent? So I had to ask that. Where can people find you if they want to rib on you for having a big dick or an American accent?
So I'm on Twitter and Instagram as @referee_Nick. You can say whatever you want to me there because I've been told many things already.
All right, thanks a lot for stopping by the show, man.
No worries, anytime.
So there you have it, Big Dick Nick, referee out of New South Wales. If you like that interview and you like Aussie Grappler interviews in general, there's a lot to get around this week on the Turnbuckle Wide World of Wrestling, Wrestle Radio Australia, and Triple M's Top Rope podcast. All spoke to New Japan Pro Wrestling's general manager Michael Craven this week. Each show managed to get a little bit of different info out of him. Of course, he's got a lot of the same stories to tell, but they come across a little different because every interviewer has their own style. That's the great thing about the bevy of Australian wrestling podcasts that are out there for you at the moment. There's a regular smorgasbord every week of Aussie wrestling podcasts, and it's awesome because each interviewer has their own style, so each interviewer is going to get, slightly different responses from the people they're interviewing. So even when we have multiple interviews with the same person, every interview is worth listening to because I've listened to all of them myself, and every single one of them gets different tidbits out of him. And when you put it all together, I'm almost convinced that Chris Jericho is going to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at Dominion. I'm almost convinced that Chris Jericho is going to be the headliner because he says it's someone bigger than Okada. Go listen to the interviews. Tell me what you think, guys. Tell me if you think he's laying some breadcrumbs across these different interviews that Chris Jericho may be coming to Australia with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Because if that's the case, what a huge get that would be for the NJPW Australia tour. But that's not all. A lot of the Michael Craven episodes were bonus episodes. So on the Turnbuckle also spoke to Session Moth, Martina, and Seb Costello this week on their regular episode. Wide World of Wrestling had a bonus episode not only with Michael Craven, they also had a bonus episode with Session Moth, Martina, and they had a in kayfabe collision on their main show this week between Seb Costello and Sebastian Walker ahead of this weekend's War to settle the score. And Jack Bonza showed up on Rodney Dion Live. Never heard of this podcast before. It's not a wrestling podcast, but Jack Bonza showed up to, I guess it's for Coast FM 96.3, and they release podcasts as well. Good on him. Rodney Dion Live, and he's talking about the flourishing Australian wrestling scene. But that's all we have in the way of Aussie Grappler and Grappler adjacent interviews this week. I say that's all we have. That's a lot. That's a lot of podcasts. A lot of podcasts to listen to, get around it. And also something to get around is what's happening this weekend near you in New Zealand. On Saturday night, IPW returned to the Mount Eden War Memorial Hall to present Endgame. Mick Moretti makes his debut in New Zealand against Jake Sheehan of Control. Father Shaw and James Shaw have promised to perform a live miracle. The Dapper Dynasty and Manalanch go to war for the New Zealand Tag Team Championships. Paul Sayers and Will Stone have a strap match. Liam Fury has his last match in New Zealand before heading over to the New Japan Dojo against Jamie Tagatese. I hope I said that right. Jamie Tagatese, I'm not sure. Candy Lee defends the New Zealand Women's Championship against Kellyanne, and Jacob Cross puts the New Zealand Heavyweight title on the line against Marcus Cool, Kingy, and JK Moody in four-way action. Tickets for this one start at $10. In New South Wales on Saturday, Newcastle Pro Wrestling head back to Club Maitland City. Rachel Rose takes on Jessica Troy. Dazza will be in action. Adam Hoffman and Ricky South will both have matches on the show, and Jack Bonza is slated to take on Headhunter Rig as Headhunter Rig continues his attempts at crossing off the names on his trophy hunter list, taking on all the former champs in the territory. Tickets start at $11 there. In Western Australia, New Horizons Pro Wrestling are at Vision Studios for Vision 3 Invasion. Rogan Kagui takes on Gorgeous Gary. Leia Elise and Soraya Knight take on Casey Johns and Lena Cross in Indie Girls UK vs Australia tag team action. And in the main event, Aaron O'Malley takes on King Shaheel in a no rope, no rules Sanctuary match. Tickets start at $15. It's a big one in Queensland this weekend as we have 3 different shows running with New Valhalla Wrestling at the Ipswich show all weekend. We also have the UPW Tag Team Turmoil show at the Shed at Aussie World. And on Friday, AWA present Mayhem from the Kedron Wavell Services Club. Humanity has a huge announcement. Outback Adam teams with Combat Wombat and B-Boy to take on Tommy Asgard, Blair Seeker, and Zach Reynolds. And Showtime Jake Nova defends the AWA heavyweight title against possibly his biggest challenge yet in Tim Cade. In Victoria, PCW, as always, present Ignition live from the Southeastern Entertainment Centre. Tickets are $20. And of course, MCW are at the famous Thornbury Theatre for the war to settle the score. The MCW Inter-Commonwealth Championship Tournament Round 1 matches take place. Richie Taylor takes on Kane Khan. TD and Jet go one-on-one. Funtime Phil and Lockie Hendricks have a rematch. And DCT takes on the returning Danny Psycho. The Brat Pack defend their MCW tag team titles against the Pareya. And of course, Seb Costello makes his debut, teaming with MCW World Champion Slex to take on the former MCW World Champion Gino Gambino and his manager Sebastian Walker. And that's it. That's everything happening this weekend in Australian wrestling. Make sure you get out to a show. Make sure you buy merch. Support the boys. Cheer the good guys. Boo the bad guys. Support the girls as well, not just the boys. It's just a word. So yeah, get around it, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, if you like what we do, you can follow me at Greg Unchained on Twitter, at Greg Unchained on Instagram. We collectively are the B+ Wrestle on Twitter because wrestling wouldn't fit. B+ Wrestling everywhere else. Like, share, subscribe, 5-star review if you like what we do. And thank you so much for listening.